Mayor's Appointment Committee will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Here. All right, well, good afternoon. We are going to get started with the nominees for the Community Relations Board. We will start with, I guess they're changing some terms of a couple of people. And so I believe, how do we want to do this? Oh, we got two new appointments. So this is what we're going to do. The two that were here first. That's first come, first served. So Mr. Brandon Yo and Reverend Anthony Small, you all can come together. Approach. Yep, have a seat.
Good morning, or good afternoon now. A few minutes past.
Good. And just as you are here, for the mic, if you just literally bring it right here to you and press the push button for it to be green, and you all can just start to just tell us who you are, and then the committee will then answer some questions, okay? Okay.
Hello? Perfect. Well, hello. I am Brandon Ngo. I've been a Cleveland resident for all of my life, so 22 years now. I grew up in Ward 13, where Councilman Casey represents, and then I currently reside in Ward 6, where Councilman Griffin is in University Circle near Case. At Case, I'm a student studying computer science and finance. There I've been a part of a few different student organizations, including the Center for Civic Engagement and Learning Scholars Program, as well as the Cleveland Asian Festival, which is a group outside of Case Western that I've been a part of for a much larger time. In addition to that, I've also been the president of the Vietnamese Student Association for the past year, alongside being the service and philanthropy chairs for my fraternity in the past as well. Currently, I am an instructor at St. Martin de Porres High School, and this summer I'll be working again as an instructor for TechCore, a nonprofit that helps to teach different tech skills to students, including programming, robotics, app development, and things like that. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. Thank you.
All right, my name is Anthony L. Small Sr. Yes, I am a Cleveland resident. I'm a Glenville Top Bloodder graduate. I went to Central State University. I also worked here in the city of Cleveland for 35 years, 7 months, and 23 days as a Cleveland police officer, then turned detective for the last 23 of those years. I'm pastoring the Starlight Missionary Baptist Church, which is in the city of East Cleveland. I'm also the president of the East Cleveland Concerned Pastors. I'm past president of Cleveland and vicinity with those pastors as well. I currently, we're working on a CDC that we started in East Cleveland to restore, revitalize, and renew the city of East Cleveland. I was one of the chief pastors with the Sherwin-Williams Project that started during COVID, that brought all of the people together, Black, white, Jew, and Hispanics, to make sure that they could all participate in this project. Along with 3 other of my pastors, we made sure that the women got their percentage so that it wouldn't take away from a male being on that job. And we did also with the blacks and the whites and Hispanics to make sure that we got that project completed. We did sign the first beam that went up here a couple of years ago. And as you know, last week we did the ribbon cutting at Sherwin-Williams. It's always been my philosophy, if I bless someone else, they will, then I will be blessed by the work that I've done by God.
All right, now I will open it up for questions. I will start off with Councilman Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, both of the nominees. Thank you for your time and being here and willingness to serve the city of Cleveland. I just had a couple questions. I can start off with Mr. Yo. I wanted to understand, what do you hope to do after you graduate?
Yeah, so I've been studying computer science and finance for the past 4 years, but I haven't really been in any big computer science and finance focused roles aside from teaching. So I am still kind of open to it, but I kind of chose those two majors because they kind of speak to me. There's things that I've been passionate about since I've been younger, so technology and then entrepreneurship with finance and things like that I've always liked. But I really do hope to continue to serve my community. Working in exclusively nonprofits has really helped me to gauge a lot of experience from people in Cleveland, even outside of Cleveland, like Lorain County, things like that, teaching those students there. But I honestly, not sure, but leaving it up to what experience I can gain and then whatever feels right, I think. Yeah.
Thank you for explaining, and that's completely okay. Some days I still don't know what I'm doing, so we have our time. I wanted to understand, how do you hope, and if I understand it right from your bio and from what you expressed, you're ethnically Vietnamese, is that correct?
Yes, I am half Chinese and half Vietnamese.
Okay.
Yes.
And how do you feel like your communities in Cleveland can be better served by the Community Relations Board?
Yeah, so growing up in Ward 13, even though I was in Ward 13, I had family in Ward 8, where Madam Chairwoman is serving. And so I had a lot of experience growing up in Asiatown and Asiatown, Cleveland, and also seeing the impact of like St. Clair and Superior Development Corporation, kind of drawing in those other community partners to kind of build Asiatown to be what it is today. So I've had the more personal experience of seeing, hey, what is these businesses kind of grown to? And kind of seeing like the public spaces that have developed, especially across from Dave's Supermarket area and things like that. So what I hope to do on the Community Relations Board is to hopefully bring more of that and continue connecting the different groups through events like One World Day, which brings together like 50 different cultures and countries together, as well as helping serve the Asiatown community with things like our Lunar New Year events, our Mid-Autumn Festival, and just recently this past weekend, the Cleveland Asian Festival as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Reverend, I wanted to just touch upon, I see you indicated you serve at the Starlight Baptist Church.
Correct. I'm the senior pastor.
And where do you live?
2242
Oh.
Belvoir.
Is that in Cleveland?
In Cleveland.
Okay, wonderful. I didn't need the address, but thank you. I wanted to understand, in your experience, how can the city work better with East Cleveland? Because the boundaries are just not actually real, right? Most people have friends, family that cross both those city boundaries, and as Community Relations Board, our job is not just the city of Cleveland, but it's our communities.
Correct.
And these artificial boundaries oftentimes can constrain how government serves different communities.
Correct.
In your experience in both of these communities, you obviously have deep ties to both.
Right.
What would be a way that you envision the Community Relations Board being able to bridge that divide and being able to help connect the two communities in a better way?
Being that positive. Oh, this chair keep leaning back on me. Well, being that positive voice, first and foremost, we need to look out for our brothers and sisters. So whatever is needed, we can do that. And there's still a relationship. You need to have those relationships within the community. Like I practiced to my kids when they were growing up, that you need to know your neighbors, not just on the left and the right, but in front and back of you. And because we're all the same, but I live in Cleveland, and I could just communicate those things that are needed. But just being that positive voice to people that they can trust, and I have become a trusted individual, not just for the elders or the seniors, but also for our youth.
That's wonderful. My final question to both of you, you can take whichever order you want. It's the same question I've asked all the other appointees, has been that, in your experience, what has been a time that you've been willing to challenge authority, and how do you hope to convey it into this role, where you may be working up against systems that are not always designed to help people, but it is going to be your job to make sure that they do?
Okay.
Yeah, so I think in terms of working in a position that might have to challenge authority, I think personally when I feel something is like the right way to go about things, I am typically pretty passionate about that, so I like to voice my opinions. But absolutely, it's a matter of kind of working with the other committee members as well and hearing what their thoughts are and kind of coming together as a community to come up with a solution, like a single solution going forward. Of course, it's not always easy to make everyone happy, and that's why we have to have these discussions, take that time out, and listen to all perspectives on whatever issue it may be. But I think it is definitely something that I would be comfortable with doing. Yes.
And listen, I totally agree. We're not going to agree on everything, but we can come to a reasonable understanding of what is better for the community, not for the other person. And the majority, that need is sufficient to make the city go further. And so when you listen to people, you find out their need, then you can also tell the board, this is what I'm hearing. And then they can go out and make sure that the things that the people of the city need, not just what I need personally, but what they need to make the city go forth. So we can come to a reasonable understanding. It's not going against the system. It's making sure that you have input to whatever situation is going on in the city so they clearly understand both sides of the equation. Then they can come up with a solution.
Wonderful. Thank you both for your time. I yield, Chairwoman.
Next we have is Councilwoman Santana.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Councilman Shaw asked one of my questions, which I was going to ask you. What type of value and based on your experience do you hope to bring to community relations? But now that you answered that, I will tell you I love to see the diversity in Community Relations Board. So thank you. I'm not sure if this is the mayor reached out to you guys for you to apply, or is this something that you saw online through the chair and then you were just interested in being a part of the community relations? How is the process between it being posted and you being here today?
Well, it was a hard choice. I was already working with the city, so I already know the city. We heard about it online also. We got information that they were looking for someone for this board. And I was recommended because of the community work that I was doing and continue to do, not just, okay, let me lean forward.
Yeah.
Okay, good. One thing, because of the community work I do already inside the religious community, also the city that I do, it was recommended that I would put in for it. And I said, hey, if it's God's will, I'll put in for it and I'll do what I need to do for the citizens of Cleveland.
Got it. Well, thank you.
So I was referred by Johnny Wu to Miss Angela Shute Woodson, and so I learned about the position through him. And then I also met with Chief Pomerantz as well to learn a little bit more about the role.
Got it. Okay, good. Thank you. And then through the chair to the pastor, are you the only pastor that would be on this board? Is there any other pastors?
I think I'm the only one.
Okay.
I think I am.
Was there any prior to you? Not that I
What's his
remember.
name? Lucas?
Oh, Reverend Lucas, yes. Oh my
He
God,
was
Mr.
my
Rest in
father's
peace. Yes.
good friend. My father passed back in 2016, and we did attend his service. I didn't think he was. I didn't think he was no longer working, but I did find out that he was working with that. But it's all about the community with me.
Yeah. Through the chair, do you have, Reverend, do you have any vision of how the churches would play a role in this community relations board?
Oh, from the 60s, my dad dealt with the injustice that was being done, and the churches came together to pass out the information. And now that we all have phones, that information is given through the membership. And, you know, all the churches are intertwined with one another. They may have a separate name, but they all know each other, and information could get passed back and forth that way.
Got it. Okay. Well, thank you both for being here today.
Okay, Councilman Polensek, do you have any questions? Yes, thank you. Mike, please use the mic. Thank you.
Thank you. And I apologize for coming a few minutes late. I was in another meeting. To both of the representatives that are here, you both indicate you live in the city of Cleveland, correct? Pastor, where's your church at? Okay.
In the city of East Cleveland.
Okay. My concern is this, and I want to express this to you, but I think to the entire community relations board, is that we, through our budgetary process, we fund groups that do violence interruption through CRB. And what I'm going to be calling upon the folks that we are going to appoint or reappoint, I want to see a better measuring stick as to the effectiveness of the individuals, the organizations that we're funding. And it's just not through CRB, but we fund groups through the Cleveland Foundation. We give money to Cleveland Foundation. We provide funding for the Community Police Commission, which they're coming in with a piece of legislation shortly, or maybe they've already submitted it. And I'm trying to think who else. PIO, Office of Prevention, Intervention, and Opportunity. So I'm becoming more and more concerned. We fund all these groups and these agencies, but we really don't know what they do. So I'm going to be calling upon the CRB, because I'm going to actually, as chairman of Public Safety, I'm going to invite CRB to come to the table within the near future to explain who's providing oversight, who's looking to see at what groups are doing what, and are they effective? Because we're spending millions of dollars on violence prevention, and I keep asking myself, are we really having the impact that we need to have? Are we really touching those individuals who are involved, especially I'm talking within our youth community, touching those individuals who are engaged in questionable activities in our neighborhoods? And are we identifying so those who might need assistance or help, whether it be jobs or whatever, how do we get them in a pipeline to get them away or off the path that they're presently on? I've been giving a great deal of thought to this because, again, I'm looking at the amount of money. The legislation will be coming to us very shortly from the Community Police Commission. It's going to be in excess of $2 million they're requesting to fund against violence prevention programs. And yet, when we look at some of the situations we're dealing with, I keep asking myself, are we really having the impact that we need to have? Are we funding the right groups? Are we funding the right initiatives? Should we be doing something different? So in the past, and I'm going to be very blunt because I've been here longer than anybody else, I think people were appointed to CRB for nothing more than political purposes or reasons, to pay back political support or to pay back whatever. And I believe that the CRB is very important. I believe the Community Relations Board is very important. In fact, and I'm also going to ask that as you collectively talk about the composition of the board, I see a lack of folks from the Eastern European community on the board. And yet, I represent a ward that is very predominantly African American, but I have a ward that still has pockets of Italians, Slovenians, Lithuanians, Irish, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I see there's a great lack of attention paid to those groups in the city. And we're all in this thing together. We're all in here together. And so, and I'm going to raise that with Angie, Director Woodson as well. I always call her Angie because I've known her a long time. But I want to make sure that the CRB is playing the role that they were intended to play. That to be an agency, a department that is inclusive, that is understanding the situations that we're dealing with today. And I want the CRB to be comprised of folks that represent the city, that really represent the city of Cleveland. And so, and those are issues that I'm going to raise. I know that you're appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the council, but I'm also going to say this to the administration. I think he's failing to understand there are other segments of our society, of our community, that are being ignored or being overlooked, which is not good. So I'm here to be supportive. I appreciate both of you stepping up to the plate, because what we need today more than ever before, we need believers in Cleveland. We need people who believe in the city, who believe this is a good town and we have a lot of things going for us. Whatever neighborhood I'm in, I see potential, I see opportunity. And how do we collectively galvanize that? How do we get more people involved? Street clubs, block clubs, organizations. How do we get more businesses involved? I'm concerned as we approach 2030, we're going to, with the new census coming up, which is right around the corner, we're going to we run a risk of redistricting again if we continue to lose population. We've lost significant numbers of council people over the years because of loss of population, and I've seen that on the east side with a major migration out. I'm reminded when we were doing the redistricting that the Glenville neighborhood lost, in less than 10 years, lost 22% of its population, shifted out. So I'm really concerned. This is an important. You're going to serve on an important board, in my opinion, and I need to say that you're going to sit on a very important board, and I just want to see a board that is maybe more understanding of the challenges that we have in the city today, and I want you to hold the folks that you're funding, the agencies that you're funding, that so they should be doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I'm going to leave it at that. So I welcome both of you. I'm here to support both of you. I want to thank the chairperson for having this hearing today. And but I want CRB just to be. I want it to be an agency that is enlightened, not just a bunch of placeholders. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Councilman
Thank
Polensek. I always would like to just, bring to the table. I know we talk about how we fund violence prevention, but we know through the RISE initiative, there was research that indicated on an annual basis, we need to be funding violence prevention to the tune between $35 to $40 million every year. $35 to $40 million. And we are nowhere near that. So I think we got to have these conversations in context. We're expecting people to do everything with not all of the tools and the resources. And so, we should definitely look at this research that has been done specifically as it relates to the city of Cleveland when it comes to violence prevention and working with in the partnership with our community relations board as we get members together. I guess just a couple of questions for both of you gentlemen. One is, what do you see as the role of the community relations board?
Let me get close. First and foremost, that they hear the needs of the community itself, and that you apply those needs to the board so that we can get those things done. You need to hear from the people.
And I guess I will follow up just right there. So, and generally, based on that, what are you hearing from the community? What are those needs of the community?
Violence is the second. Mental illness is number one. As you know, funds have been cut, and our people are hurting, and there's no agency really to turn to. We're dealing with in the streets and in our homes and in our churches. So we need an advocate so that we can send these people to, because actually they're coming to the community centers, they're coming to the churches, but we have no place to put them. One time we did have the Adams Board. We don't have that now. Those funds have been cut. So we need to open up a place that we can send these people to so that they can have the counselors that are needed. And those are the two number one things, mental health and this violence with our young people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so in terms of what I think is the position of the Community Relations Board, I think first and foremost, what I've heard a lot is that we need kind of specific and measurable and attainable goals to kind of go forward. Because I believe this is the longest running board in all the boards, if I remember correctly, from Chief Pomeranz. So it's important to see like how we're doing across all this time and what we can do better. Most importantly, I think. So in terms of what I think specifically we can do, it's finding a place or finding a solution to make all Clevelanders feel like they belong, and of course being a voice for those community members, but also building that space physically for them. I think a big problem is like a lack of perceived public spaces for our community members. I can only speak to more specifically Asiatown. It's getting better, but there's still a lot of work to be done, I think, in terms of building these spaces and building spaces for people to kind of be proud of as Cleveland residents and seeing that, hey, work is being done where my money is going. So I think those things are pretty important here.
Hey, and then a follow-up, I know both of you gentlemen are very busy, and so really wanted to know, do you have the time and capacity to fully commit to your work on the Community Relations Board? And based on that, what is your understanding of the work required of serving on the Community Relations Board?
Yeah, so I believe that I do have the time and capacity to serve on the board. I actually made sure to call off of work today to prioritize serving on the board and being here for this meeting. In terms of the commitment that I recognize, I believe we meet every third Thursday from 3 to 4:30 p.m. at least currently. And so aside from that, also meeting with different community partners, meeting with different businesses, meeting with residents of Cleveland, just to make sure their voices are being heard and that we're serving them correctly.
My wife is not looking at me right.
She is.
Oh, man. Y'all should help me here. Yes, Thursday is available to me with all. Yes, I am busy. And that's because there is a need, more so than any other time in our life. But I was told that every third Thursday you would be meeting. And if there is another community meeting, we can rearrange our schedules during the week, because I'm sure you're going to have some meetings that some important issue may come up. And I'm available for virtual as well. So Thursdays are good with me. Tell her she can put her head down for me.
Okay. All right. Does the committee have any other questions? Okay. All right. So we will take a vote over consideration. Mayor's Appointments Committee consideration of the mayor's appointment to the Community Relations Board. Brandon Yo. Clerk? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. If our committee members can please sign the form. Next, we have Mayor's Appointments Committee consideration of the mayor's appointment to the Community Relations Board. Reverend Anthony Small. Clerk, please take the roll. Vote. Yes.
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 Okay. Congratulations, and look forward to working with you all. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. My Aunt Mary. Thank you. Thank you so much. Very cute. Thank you.
Okay, next up, we will have Honorable Councilman Jay Westbrook as well as Mr. Peter Whip. You both can come up, please. And as you all are coming up, just a reminder, please put the push button. The mic will turn green. Please talk into the mic so that our listening audience can hear you. As you all are here, either one of you all can start and just share a little bit about yourselves.
Then it turns, stays green, or?
Just let it go.
Okay.
Yep. Pull it to.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jay Westbrook. I had the honor of serving on the Cleveland City Council for 34 years, and a bit of that time as the council president. And currently, my wife and I live near Shaker Square. We moved there partly because our daughter and 2 grandkids live 1 block away. And but this is Shaker Square is in Cleveland, and we're in Cleveland. So I've been in Cleveland for about 55 years. And prior to being in city council, I was involved in community development work. And as a council person, I helped found the Stockyard Development Corporation, which is now Metro West, as well as a strong member of the Cadell Improvement, which Councilman Shaw has inherited the leftovers of, along with Councilwoman Hudson. And as a council member, I've felt very strongly that anyone in leadership especially should do all they can to bridge separation within the community and between the community and its city government. City government is the most accessible form of government, and as such, that's where trust among citizens can be built and does get built. As a member of council, I was a strong supporter of the Community Relations Board, and as was mentioned earlier, it's the first Community Relations Board established in the country. And I think it's small and certainly modestly funded compared to some other departments, but very, very important, very essential to the mission of mending separations among neighbors, among communities, among ethnicities and races and incomes.
Right. Push.
Yeah, like that.
We're good.
Look at that, like a seasoned veteran.
No. Anyway, thank you for Councilwoman, Chairwoman, and to everyone else for being here. So my name is Peter Witt, and I've been a longstanding member of the Community Relations Board at this point, I think 2006. So I've had quite a bit of experience sitting on the board, working with the board. But who am I? I think that's the question we start off with. So let me jump backwards and just say I'm a resident, long-term resident of Cleveland. Grew up in Garden Valley neighborhood. Spent my youthful years there. Then moved to the near west side when I was 16. So then I got to the west side and had a different cultural experience, which I embraced. And have since, lived in different parts of Cleveland. Currently, I live in North Collinwood. So my extent of communities have been very much rooted in being a resident of Cleveland. My experience has been rooted in working in community for many years. So the work that I've done has been from really leading initiatives in the central neighborhood where I met, at that time, Councilman Frank Jackson, working on community health workers, actually working with people from community, managing their challenges, understanding the things they were trying to address daily from, basic needs to like, how can I maintain my health? So that was really a grounding for me. My background is actually I'm a licensed social worker. And so with that, I bring a kind of community context. And also when we think about the social and emotional impacts that's happening to not only our kids, our youth, and our adults. As I think about who I am and my integration in this work, I also think about the kind of matriculation, not only from being in, healthcare system, working in public health, but also at this point working in philanthropy for the past 6 years, where I have a substantial amount of kind of community integration into the Buckeye, Woodland Hills, and Mount Pleasant neighborhood. So when I think of that, I think of the type of work that I've been involved in for many years has been community-based, community-driven, and really centered around what are we doing to support community. Fortunately, I've been in a position to do it through my jobs, although for a decade, I was an independent consultant working in community, and again, having an opportunity to work for people at the grassroots level has given me a grounding that supports me in the work that I'm currently doing.
All right, thank you. So we'll start off with questions. Councilwoman Santana.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through the chair. to Councilman Westbrook. Like, this is your first time on this board, right? This is a new, what,
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Santana, this is, completed a 2-year term, and
okay.
this is a re-up.
okay, it just has it, okay, as appointment, got it. Oh, okay, I see the new appointment. Do you serve on any other city boards?
I do not.
Just this one? And then through the chair to Westbrook, what are you in your 2 years there, anything that you feel very excited that you have accomplished while being on the board? And I'm sure with the extensive experience that you have being a city council and politics, like, what have you brought to this board that, once again, has been transformational?
Well, that's a fairly rather tall order, but let me first of all give respect to the director and the staff and the other board members. So I'd like to say I think I have fit in with the board. It is quite a diverse board, brings a lot of varying points of view. What a point of view that I have that I carried while on council and now on the board is the important role of community unity. I like to say that the major word in the word community is unity, and that we cannot, we fall short of having the kind of vibrant, productive city that we all wish to have if the communities are broken and at odds with each other. So the Community Relations Board, appropriately named because it came about right after World War II. There was significant racial moving in, the great migration from the South to the city, and the need to build understanding and relationships was responded to by city government by setting up a Community Relations Board. So as a councilman, I took my early experiences in community organizing into the role of an elected community leader. And a hallmark of what we did in my ward was we followed the belief that there was no problem too great that coming together and working together couldn't solve. And we did tackle quite a few things, and earlier it was mentioned youth violence. Sadly, I had retired from council, but the Cadell Rec Center is a big, big part of my role in council. And it breaks my heart that that's where Tamir Rice lost his life, largely because of a breakdown in communication to the police, communication from dispatch to the police, and a rookie policeman who didn't know what he was doing. And it still pains me greatly that that's much of a part of my life is there. So I think the one thing I hope my colleagues on the board would say, they've heard me say and heard me bring, is one, support for the community outreach workers that Councilman Polensek referred to, the violence interrupters, the people that are on the front line of these frictions and conflicts, and also the extreme importance of the term, Pastor may know or share with us, I might not say it right, but healing the breach. That the human condition creates a great deal of division, and even in our little neighborhoods. And so leadership can overcome that with goodwill and hard work.
Got it. And I would just say my second question for you would be just a quick follow-up. Just 30 years of experience. I'm sure things have changed from when you were a council member to now. Do you believe through the chair that the community relations goals that are in place align what is going on in the city of Cleveland?
Actually, I do very much. I think there's always more work, to be done on any front. But especially in the case of community relations, we've built up long before the term community policing was popular. We built up community relations staff that's embedded in the various police districts. They help to bring together police community relations committees, monthly meetings with the police commanders. I watched that dialogue unfold. I became a councilman in 1980, and I can name the commanders who were like, why should I go out and meet with citizens, And over time, because of the structure and the staffing, they became more and more familiar with it, to the point where they would say, well, when's the next community relations committee? Because I've got things I need to communicate to the citizens. So, there's very measurable thing. I remember the first, Councilman Plensick, I hopefully will recall that in my tenure as council president, we established what was called PEACE, P-E-A-C-E, stood for People Empowered Against Child Endangerment. And a person in my ward, son, took the niece up into the attic, and they were fiddling around, found a gun, pulled the trigger, and she died. And that woman became a major leader within the community, worked with Mrs. Pointer and others who have been strong leaders. So, what's that, 35 years ago, we were working away about youth violence, learning about firearm safety, violence prevention. Part of the problem is we don't stay the course. We take a grant, beef up, do something, the grant runs out, everything gets shut down. 8 years later, oh my gosh, youth violence is way off the hook. We better do something. So come back together. There's got to be continuity. Violence is a public health issue. It's just, not to simplify it, but it's like, malaria prevention. There's things you do, and there's things you do to prevent youth violence. We don't do them. So kids follow, they're very susceptible to peer pressures. They're susceptible to fear. We all are. So, so anyway,
Thank you for that.
hopefully I didn't overextend. my
No, that's
answer.
fine. Thank you. I just want to thank you for your years of service. And I love historical knowledge, and I think that's very important on board. So,
Well, if I may say, Madam Chair, the council lady, in one of the redistricting that Councilman Plensick referred to, became the councilwoman for Mercedes Cotner Park, which in the day was Sunrise. And somehow generations still call it Sunrise, even though we branded
my
it
assistant, she grew
after
up in that
the same
area.
lady
She still
this
calls
room
it.
is named after. But
Yeah.
determination at the neighborhood level.
Yeah, thank you. And it was great to knock on doors and every resident know who you were. So, and then very brief, Peter, if you could answer that question, but
Sure.
also 20 years you've been on the board.
Yes.
What keeps you coming back and wanting to
Sure.
be a part of it?
So I'll answer about accomplishments. So I want to start with that, and I'm not going to get the exact date or year, but one of the most important things that I think has happened that I led and really was supported fully by the board was developing a racial relations report for the city of Cleveland. And let me just say, this started because of Janice Contreras and I connecting. She was on the board at the time. We were supported by Metro Health to get the dollars just to do the work because it wasn't in the department. And we were able to go out and actually have conversations around race relations in every district. The power of that was huge, to the point where former Mayor Jackson had a press release, and that we saw this as a hope to be a working document because one of the things we recognize is the department itself is managing multiple pillars, if you will. We're not just talking about what happens on the violent interrupter side, but we are talking about keeping and lifting up the heritage and the, if you will, quality of those individuals in our community by recognizing who they are. So that's a component of it. The other context, particularly as we think about a climate that we're in federally and so much diversion happening, race relations is a huge part of understanding where is the meter, how are we gauging relationships, and how are we working more closely together and in proximity to one another. So I would just say to you that was one of a highlight and an important part of the Community Relations Board that I was able to be instrumental in. The other context, and even a more recent context, is being able to leverage the work that I'm doing through our Youth Justice Collaborative and bridge relationships and to support, for example, relationships through our Detention Center with that of the actual city of Cleveland. Actually, not just the city of Cleveland, but Cuyahoga County. And so that's relevant, right, as a subsidiary to the work when we think about violence interruption. I could probably name a few more, but said be brief, so I will. So you had a second question. I want to make sure I heard of that. You said
20 years on
yes.
the board.
Yeah. What have we seen? So I'll say this, 20 years on the board, coming in, eager to do work, you kind of learn, first of all, the culture of the board. And one of the things that I understood quickly is that our board is really rooted in the violence interrupter work. Youth prevention was a huge part of it. But I would also say this, that field was emergent. So there was a lot of lessons learned along the journey, and I say that across the country. So the reason that's important is because I know earlier Councilman Polinsky referenced, investment, and that investment, right, is on a learning curve. One of the things that I've learned is you have to take risk in order for you to see a return. When you talk about metrics, one of the things we don't do well is look at the qualitative understanding of what the kids are talking about. We want to look at numbers and retention without the actual proper investment. The proper investment is one that has to be from a lined item in the budget that sustains the quality of work, sustains the quality of workers, which then gives you the opportunity to have qualitative data and quantitative data to see the results of a fruitful labor. We have to also build the capacity of those doing the work. So for example, we know that we're going to have people impacted by the system doing the work and stopping major fires. And I can give you an example of that just based on conversations I've had. We have to understand the beauty of that qualitative relationship. Not wrong words, the beauty of the relationship. And we're not saying qualitative to break it down for those who are listening. In other words, it's not going to be metrics all the time by numbers, number of kids who stopped this. It's going to be about the kids saying that person helped me to get to the next level. And that's important because those are the types of relationships that change kids' direction and even adults for that matter. We're talking about young adults. So in short, or shorter, it's not short, the investment and the fortunate investment that this team has done with getting, grants has been wonderful, but that's what it is, a grant. We need line items coming out of public safety or whatever direction that needs to be that's substantial. To your point around the research that you referenced earlier, Councilwoman, Chairwoman Stephanie House, I think with that we'll see a tremendous change. And I say that because I've been here long enough to see the ebb and flow. And we also know that philanthropy itself, having now being in philanthropy for 6 years, does not have the capacity to yield the results by itself for the type of changes we want to see. One example of that in recent conversations is looking at what's happened in Newark. They took a percent of the police budget. They were able to actually bring down and actually develop an office of CVI and OVI interrupters. And that intervention has led to them having a low homicide rate that's been substantial. Now, that's a 10-year journey that they've been on, but those are lessons learned that if we look at that and we look at it and not necessarily, in my opinion, get entangled into whose budget and what's being lost, but look at the prevention, I think we can do a lot more here in Cleveland personally. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right, next I have Councilman Polinsky.
Madam Chairperson, honorable colleagues, to both of you, I want to again thank you for stepping up to the plate again because this is a very important role, CRB. Some people fail to understand that. I don't. I understand it all too well because I saw over the years the importance of CRB, and that's why I will say again that the board needs to be more reflective as well of the city. And it isn't, unfortunately. And I hope that's something I'm going to be talking to Director Woodson about, and hopefully she can communicate that to the mayor, because there are large segments of our population that are being ignored in the city as it pertains to boards and commissions. But that being said, I want to stress again what I said to the two previous appointees, oversight for the people we are funding for violence interruption. I've come to the realization, unfortunately, there are some that are performing and some that are not. And I see this in the four main areas that we're doing: PIO, CPC. In fact, CPC has not even funded anybody yet, which is mind-boggling to me. They've been in existence for so long. We allocated the funding, but they have never implemented it. And then again, CRB, and then the $10 million we put in the Cleveland Foundation. I want to make sure that people that you fund understand why they're being funded, and that there's a reporting process, so you know as well, better than anyone, what these folks are doing. Those are concerns that I'm having more and more when I look across the board and I look at statistics in some of the neighborhoods, especially where there's high levels of violence with juveniles. I want to make sure, because I had one of them tell me, Councilman, I'm not even going to mention the group, but you're funding groups you shouldn't be funding. And this is why one of the groups that have been funded. You're funding groups that are not performing. And so there has to be that oversight. So I'm on board with both of you. I know Jay's record, it speaks for itself in public office, his commitment to his community at the time, and the positions he's taken in council, and I totally agree. We fund initiatives and they go by the wayside. There's no continuity. When I think of the things that we could have been funding over the years for violence interruption that were interrupted by funding by funding streams, I'm thinking about what kind of successes could we have had had we directed more funds, especially like into summer jobs programs. Not enough funding goes into summer jobs. We need to provide more funding to put kids to work in our city, and that's something I'm very proud of the fact that the council collectively put more money in that program this year than was requested by the administration, and we're going to have to put more again in because we want to make sure kids are working in our streets, in our neighborhoods. So, and Mr. Wood, I haven't had the pleasure to know you on a personal level, but your information has spoke for itself, and your commitment to the Community Relations Board. And again, I just want to stress to the viewing public, this is just not a group of placeholders. This is a group that needs to be aggressive, active, and making sure that the agencies and organizations that you are funding understand that. And if they don't perform, then they need to go bye-bye. They need to leave the funding stream. So on that note, I'm here to support both of you. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you. Next, go ahead. Yes.
Madam Chair, if I may, this won't be the first time, but I may get in trouble with our esteemed director, Angela Woodson, who, like Councilman Polensek, I've had the pleasure of knowing over several decades when she was very young, very young. And I'd like to put forward, I'd like to build on what Councilman Polensek has said, both in the earlier interviews and again now, that I think it's time for the city, perhaps with the direct engagement from the Public Safety Committee, to really do an audit of what we're doing in the field of youth violence and violence intervention and violence prevention. The 35 years ago start that I had, we had a small grant from the Gun Foundation for a program in the schools about risk prevention. It wasn't only handgun violence, it was bullying, it was sexual activities other elements of risk, but handguns were put right in there. That went as far as the grant went, and then it fizzled out. That's another example of a kind of grant-driven effort where efforts of this importance ought to be mission-driven and ought to be handled, in my opinion, from the perspective of all hands on deck. A school teacher, a school principal, a police officer, a minister, all working, maybe singing different octaves or different rhythms, but pretty much from the same hymnal, and working together. So, and I agree with the councilman. I've seen it myself. It disturbs me that there are programs that get put forward, frankly, because of politics. Because someone says, "Oh, well, so-and-so's a big star, and they're really doing a great job. I'm going to shoot $1 million over there, to do that." And it fizzles out because it's not. Again, it's not mission-driven. It's not a team effort. This should be Team Cleveland on the front line of making sure all of our young people are safe. See a gun, report a gun. Don't glorify or dramatize owning and packing a pistol. So perhaps, Councilman, if you want to reach out. Peter, this might be my last time I'm on the board.
I like to think that that's not the case.
But if it is, I'll join with you anyway, because it is. I mentioned earlier, and I won't keep going, but I saw close up what happened at Cudell, and I'm not saying if I had been the councilman, I would have been there on that Saturday afternoon. I don't know. But I know there was a uniformed police officer with a monitor in front of him, never saw what was happening out on the playground. Nobody went inside the rec center and said, "Oh, there's something going on out here that you need to take a look at." That's how a community responds to, sightings of risk. It's and so we really should. There's a nice memorial garden. Mrs. Rice, Samira Rice, has really put her self, in the memory of her son, and is led. We could rally around her and some of her work. Anyway. A community is known by its care for its children. And, there's a hunger among children that is being satisfied with false vape shops and handguns and bullying online and lots of other things. This old fogey here knows too well. So anyway, I respond to your concern. Let's see concern, act on concern.
So, Councilwoman, Chair, if you don't mind, one of the things I do want to make sure I bring up is I know that we've received reports, Councilman Polinsky, at our board meetings that give us an indication of interventions that happen per our community violence interrupters. I just want to make sure that that's understood. Now, what I can maybe speak to a little bit, and I won't say I'm an expert on this because I do work in philanthropy, and there are a number of organizations that receive support to do CVI work that we may not necessarily be connected to in terms of reporting. So I think there's an opportunity when you think about it in that respect, and I'm just saying that because it depends on where the source of the dollars are coming from. So if it's granted through the Cleveland Foundation, then they're reporting to the Cleveland Foundation, and they might not be reporting here. I can also say this as a person who's worked in community. One of the most important things I've learned, and as a person who's working in front, you have to get on the ground. And our foundation is a community-facing foundation. We are on the ground talking to community because they let us know who's being effective. And I'll tell you this, some of the most effective individuals and organizations are the people we don't want to find. And so we have to find, right, our balance with those small p politics sometimes that can disrupt an organization being the most effective out there. So again, we have so much to do and so much opportunities. I see it. I don't see it as the glass half full. Half empty. I see it as half full. And I think if we keep that lens, we truly can make a difference.
And Madam Chairman, if I may respond, and then we have nonprofits that are actually funding other groups that we don't even know who they are. And it's my position and opinion that the mayor and Angie Woodson and CRB should be informed of who, if an outside agency is funding violence interruption, the chief executive and CRB should know who they are. And yet we know there are groups out there that are being funded, and we have no idea what they're doing, who they're reporting to, what neighborhoods they allegedly are working in. And so we somehow got to figure out how to get all on the same page here. For them not to inform, again, the chief executive of this city and the CRB director, that to me, it makes no sense to me. And yet I know what's happening out there. So
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that. Thank
Sure.
you, Madam Chair.
So I will chime in there. We have an initiative. I say Cleveland Rise. That's not. It's Cleveland Thrive.
Cleveland Thrive,
So
yes.
Cleveland Thrive is an initiative. All council members, if you have not, I believe the office of with interim director Sherry Yerlery has been reaching out to every single council member to give them an update on Cleveland Thrive, which is supposed to has been under work for a couple of years now to talk about Cleveland strategy to bring everyone together. And so I would encourage, just council members, if you have not been a part of it, learn about it. And I want to give a shout out because there was a group who reached out to me. Again, they were funded from an outside grantor, and they took it upon themselves to say, hey, councilwoman, this is what we're doing. And I was like, and I'm reading all the stuff. And they had done a lot of work. And I'm gonna shout them out. It was Renounce, Denounce. They went through kind of all the things that we're doing. They had taken all these surveys and, just all this stuff. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Y'all doing this here. And I knew other things, but I just was appreciative that they took the time just to say it. And now it has me like, okay, we all have to find out ways to better connect and communicate with one another. But I know that work and even just that outreach has been a result of the work and engagement of Cleveland Thrive. I will say that. That's why I'm bringing that up. And so I just will encourage people, just because you don't know about it doesn't mean it's not happening. And I think there's a lot of great things that are happening in our community. Councilman Shaw.
Thank you. Thank you for both of your time and consideration and for your past service and willingness to continue. I'll be quick. I wanted to this is something I've talked about before with our previous batch of appointees, not today, but other members that have been on the board already. When I look at the charter, I was trying to understand as one of the new members, just getting the lay of the land and understanding what the board has done, what its history was, and that was really helpful for me to kind of go through that. And of course, I echo what Councilwoman Santana indicated of your past history in the neighborhoods and the wards. When I was door knocking, people still mentioned it, that you were always out in the street and encouraged me to do the same. So I hope to continue that. But in regards to the board itself, the duties of the board, right? I'm going to just read straight from the charter. It's the community relations boards shall promote amicable relations among the racial and cultural and other groups within the community. And then under the duties for the executive director, it indicates the board shall work to remove inequalities which may be related to minority group or other status on such important problems as housing, recreation, education. And then the fourth one is law enforcement, and then vocational guidance and related matters. And each time we talk about community relations board, I think oftentimes the conversation gets limited to community violence prevention, which is a critical and important issue, right? There's no getting around it. We have an issue in our city, we got to address it, but we all know, and I think everybody's acknowledged, and we've talked about how community safety is not just regarding policing. There's so many other factors that go into it, especially right now with unaffordable housing and all of these other issues our communities are facing. To me, I see the root causes as beyond just, it's the lack of resources, of course. So my question really is regarding what other ways do you envision the board's duty or future to be where we can start addressing these things such as gentrification, which, of course leads to so much more discord amongst communities where historically I think we saw kind of the racial relations and the problems that existed, and that was the origins of the board. But now I think we've come into a different form where communities are segregated and lined up around other ways. And how do we kind of bridge those gaps and evolve so that we can kind of live in the present, and it's not just so much as focused on what the previous issues were and how we try to address that. Does what I'm saying make sense? And I'm looking for, I want to understand it. Like, to me, like the first, right, housing, it's like, okay, what are the ways we can start going out? Like, so I want to understand what your thoughts are. How do you envision this board to potentially change, reflect the modern day we live in, and not just the 60s?
Yeah, sure. So I appreciate the question, and it actually speaks to Councilman Santana. We talked about the evolution of the board and the board's work. So I do think CVI is an evolution. I'm just going to put that out there, because if you think about the origin of the board, there's other now boards that deal with housing. And so we got to recognize the outgrowth of what happened at the charter of this to where we have different kind of boards that's addressing those issues. Now,
What other boards do housing?
well, let me give you an example. So, for example, we were talking about employment. Let me just
Sure.
give it out. So employment grew out of that to having the opportunity. What is the opportunities employment? I may be getting this wrong at this point. Now you're making me second guess myself. But I may not have the name right. But there's
Office of
another
Equal Opportunity?
Thank you.
OEO?
That's an outgrowth, right,
Sure.
of where this started. But to answer your question, one of the things that we come up with always is housing court. And so when we are looking at, for example, evictions, we've asked ourselves, how do you manage people and getting their notices? And is there any way we can manage that or have that particular court come to our board to understand that? So when you frame the question, let me get back on track here. It's really about us having understanding of some of the actual different departments and different, if you will, bottlenecks that challenges where people might be in a very disparate situation. So if there's a housing issue, if there's a landlord issue, those are the types of things that we may want to understand if there's some unjust kind of acts. But that also requires other departments that might not even be within Cleveland. It also may be Cuyahoga County. So that's kind of speaking to the people part of it. When you talk about gentrification in your example, that's a policy piece. That's a political piece. There's a level of advocacy. So then we have to understand, where do we advocate it again? It cuts across development. Development itself, when we look at the infrastructure of housing right now, based on the fact that anyone could buy out of the Cleveland Land Bank, out of the Cuyahoga County Land Bank, investors are out-of-town investors. It's a completely different issue that is very challenging for a group like us to get around, but we can raise the question. And so I think it becomes a matter of resource and dollars in a department, right, that would have to have the capacity to actually address those particular dynamics. So you're talking about much more systems change issues, which I appreciate. At the same time, you have to look at either the budget in our department that would allow us to address those gentrification issues, unless we just go out there with our banners and raise them. And then we have to look at the implications of the politics that may follow with that, right? So it's a very complex question. And I want to raise all the dynamics around that question. But I appreciate it because, to your point, why should we have neighborhoods where people have been there for years have to lose or cannot afford to be, right, in their own communities? But when you think about it from a board perspective, and this is through my lens and through my experience, it is not as simple as, hey, let's take on gentrification. Because then we need the gentrification dollars in the budget and the department and the manpower to do that. And we will also probably need the political will of a council and the city council and the mayor to also lean into that, as much as we would need the relationships across Cuyahoga County, across the Charitable Land Bank, across the City of Cleveland Community Development Department. So it's just much more complicated than simply saying, hey, we want to take on gentrification. I just want to use that as an example of outgrowth. So for me, this is where strategy meets purpose. And also, we have to think about our intent and impact, and where we have the heaviest or the highest level of, or sphere of influence based on the people who's on the board and based on what we're attaching ourselves to. I hope that helps answer the question in a way that I appreciate it. Like, I love it.
No, and I think just to briefly respond before I let Council President, whatever you respond to it. Of course, I don't I don't think gentrification is simply the
I'll just use your example.
board's position by itself to fix, right? It's absolutely a policy issue. There's things the elected officials in the city have to do, be willing to provide political capital and actual resources for.
Yes.
But all of those approaches will be top down. And for me, one of the strengths I see of this board is the ability to go out in the community and start helping neighbors and tenants organize, right? Encouraging that community organizing aspect of this.
Yes.
Because to me, that's a key component of how do we break down the racial inter-community divides, is because people don't know each other, fear creeps in, misinformation creeps in, there's no trust, right? Paranoia, all of those things we know when there's no trust between communities. And to me, that's really the core of what this board is trying to do, is get rid of that paranoia, mistrust, and build and bridge those gaps between communities. And to me, like addressing the material conditions of people is the perfect way to start organizing people into like the grassroots bottom-up approach that I think is absolutely necessary in this space. And I would like to see, I think there's a role for the board potentially, if the board is so inclined to pursue that way, doesn't absolve the rest of council or the city from doing its portion in providing policies and modern-day solutions to combat gentrification. But that's kind of where I'm looking to, of like the community organizing aspect of it. Like I think through, as an attorney at Legal Aid, where I was representing tenants against landlords, just the innumerable issues that tenants had in terms of just organizing themselves, the inability they have to even form trust, the societal issues that come up because of people being evicted, all of these things. So for me, that's kind of where I ground myself of understanding, okay, and like I said, I think there's a role for the potential opportunity for the board to play. I hear you. Definitely not on the board itself. I'm not expecting the community relations board in, by 2029 to be able to fix that issue. But
So-
thanks for your thoughtful response. Yeah,
Well, I want to
please
respond to that,
Yeah.
and I appreciate it, because historically there has been a person in our department. I don't want to say currently. I know we have our district reps, and a lot of times they're working to understand community issues, but it's typically a small team.
Sure.
Again, it's about staffing.
Sure.
But there was, I'm thinking about Phil, I can't think of his last name, long-term person, he's no longer with he retired or he left, but he was working with block clubs. So that department has worked with organizing block clubs. So it's similar to what you're talking about. By the way, I'm community organizing background because I'm for my MSW, so I can appreciate where you're coming from. But it has happened. Could there be more? Absolutely. But for me, as a person who's been on the department, in the department, as far as I'm concerned, even though I'm on the board, because we kind of work alongside the team, it's really about the resources, and it's really about the capacity building to make that happen, and being creative. So, for example, if you're going to get youth involved every summer, why not teach them some community organizing? Let them be components of that particular opportunity. But that's not necessarily a CRB thing. That may be out of the rec center thing. So that's where you also have to be, I think, reverse engineering with some of the creative things when resources are not as plentiful as you like.
You guys come up with a plan for doing this. I'll go to bat for the resources.
Okay, let's talk
Getting
about it.
you the
I'll hold
resources
you
is part of
accountable
my
here.
job. So I appreciate that, and I believe I'm going to be one of the members as well. So I'll be right there with y'all. But any other things, Jay, you wanted to add?
Well, let me say first of all that I'm not as practiced and learned as my colleague here, Peter Witt, but there's a couple of experiences that I want to share that because I had them, they're in a way, they're in the journal, if you will, of City Hall.
Don't shortchange yourself. I think you have more experience than me and Peter combined.
Well, and your point is that self-interest is a powerful motivation for coming together. And if you look around, and your common self-interest has brought together various races, various economics, various sexual orientations. That, I think, is what we would call the rainbow of unity. And there are cases in Cleveland where that's happened. Right in Nikki Hudson's new ward, way back, long ago, there was CMHA put a African American family into an all-white neighborhood in a scattered site home with no preparation. I wasn't even aware of it as a councilman. And the worst in people came out. Every afternoon, a bunch of what we would on the street call rednecks gathered to taunt this family. And a friend of theirs showed up one day with a shotgun and unloaded it on the taunters. And through the grace of God, no one was killed. In fact, no one was even seriously injured because the person used a light gauge buckshot. And yet it made the national news. It made the national news. And you're talking about Purdy. Is somebody said used to be, or it was you, maybe you, saying there used to be a community organizer. Pat Purdy.
Pat Purdy. Yeah, that's I can.
Pat
get his name.
Purdy and
Yeah.
I spent the night walking the street, knocking on doors, saying, "Do you know what happened?" And the vast majority of the people on the street said, "Yeah, those SOBs have been out there taunting that family for weeks." But there was no communication. There was no sense that this was wrong. Well, there was a sense that it was wrong, but there was no sense, like, who do I turn to? And I'm sad to say that it was only after the violence occurred that my phone rang off the hook, and Pat Purdy and I spent the night there. Within 1 week, Pastor Otis Moss and the family that had been victimized came into a Methodist church in the corner of that neighborhood, and everybody stood up clapping for them, including the taunters. And Cleveland doesn't know this story. It doesn't know that this moment of healing occurred in the face of violence. But it came from community organizing. It came from Pat Purdy and the councilman, who happened to be me, spending all night on the doors. We circulated a petition asking that charges be dropped against the shooter, and the law and order prosecutor, J.T. Corrigan, said, "No way, we're not going to do that. You know, they got to pay."
Has there ever been a prosecutor who's not happy to press charges?
Yeah, he was more than ready. We talked him out of it, and they dropped the charges. And the people who were shot, there were people that spent the night in the hospital, but not long term. People that were shot signed the petition.
Was this before the Community Relations Board?
No. Community Relations Board was founded in 1947, so the board was around.
Could the board have done
But,
anything
well,
there?
I'm sorry, Pat Purdy worked for the board.
Oh, I see.
I'm sorry.
That's the connection.
And that's what
Yeah.
I was trying to.
I
I
see.
said the wrong
That's
person,
right.
but I was trying to make the. So
That's,
he's.
so
I
I'm
see.
saying,
Thank you.
it's your point that on the street, in the face of real things, in this case, violence, but as a reaction to prejudice and hate, which I mean, most of the guys that were, promulgating this were not working. They had all afternoon to drink beer and be, ugly and hateful. But when the results of their hate was shown to them, like in a mirror, they were like, "I don't want to go down that road." I still have relationships with some of those people. And
Thank you for both. I don't have any
Yeah.
more questions. Please
I'm
finish
just-
your thoughts.
my
And I know
point is
Councilman
that-
Polensek has something too.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I want to
know
finish.
Peter-
I want to bridge the conversation just a bit with this. Thank you for that. Just, Council Chair, I just want to just I want to cap in this. So thank you for saying that and bringing that story
No,
here.
It was Pat that brought that
Yeah, and I couldn't, and I said Phil, but it was Pat. I couldn't think of. Catch
You know,
it.
my Rolodex
So,
is rusty.
well, listen,
so-
I should have a much more worse one in your. Anyway, so here's what I want to say to this, and I want to, Director Schutz particularly have stressed the importance of thinking about restorative justice as a practice, and it's actually something we're very involved in through what we're doing through our Youth Justice Collaborative. And it's not the foundations, it's a whole group of folks, including the courts, judges, et cetera, prosecutors. And I do believe what you just referenced was really the context of restorative justice practices. Why do I bring that up? I would say this, I referenced the fact that we led an effort to kind of have conversations around racial equity in all the districts. We did that successfully. But what was the undercurrent of that was the REI training that was happening here, and everyone was kind of getting that training. One of the things I was able to do was working at resources for the entire department to get REI training. So that was, again, outside support, and that was really based on the relationship I had and people willing to do that. But again, we shouldn't have to build relationships, right? I shouldn't have to use that. We should have resources. But if we thought about the practice of restorative justice, right, and reclamation and healing, I think that's what we need, whether it's across, police community relationships, whether it's across individual relationships, whether that is done by violence and or by some type of racial motivation, and it could just be words and language. So one of the things, and I want to give credit to where credit is due, and that's Director Schutz-Wilson has said, this is an opportunity that we probably should lean in more on. But again, I'm going to keep going back to this. If we get people level set, is the word I look at, departments and across, the city of Cleveland, coming from the same lens, whether that's police and or community and or within various, even county, I think we have an opportunity here. So when you look at me and think about what's progressive or what's next, I think about how do you level set in that way. Because couple that with community organizing, that would be a wonderful kind of treat to most people. And so I just want to reference that. And last thing I would offer is, as a person who's been on the board for quite some time, I do value the inclusion that Director Schutz bring to the board members, the welcoming of, leveraging your, resources, being able to show up and being able to be in front of opportunity. And of course, many of us like myself have a full-time job and other things, so we do our best. But one of the things I am very appreciative of is her intentionality around making sure that we can be frontline as we want to be and really urging us to be frontline. So I just want to call that out in this opportunity, even though it's about us being appointed if y'all accept this. But I need to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah, but thank you. And I know we are about to lose quorum because people talked about having to do opinions. And so I know, Councilman Jones, you have come here and you said you wanted the questions, but I am going to have to call the roll on these appointments because 2 members are going to leave at 1:30, and we will not be able to vote on these candidates. Okay. Well, I'm letting you know, we're going to call the roll, and then you can ask your questions so that when members leave, they can leave. Okay. Thank you. So at this time, Mayor's Appointment Committee consideration for Mayor's appointment to the Community Relations Board. Jay West, please will take the vote, Madam Clerk. Yes.
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 All right. Mayor's Appointments Committee consideration of the Mayor's appointment to the Community Relations Board of Peter Witt. Madam Clerk, yes.
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 Jasper, Council.
Okay. Well, congratulations to you all, and we look forward to hearing about the reports. And then Councilman Jones.
Madam Chairwoman, first of all, I appreciate the fact of having the opportunity, but as a member of Cleveland City Council, if a member is sitting at the table, usually there's consideration before the fact, not after. So I won't argue that. I understand the
it's
quorum.
not about that.
I
Again,
understand what
quorum
you
was
had.
going to be
Let me
left.
finish if
And
you don't
no,
mind.
No.
Madam Chairwoman,
Again,
I had the floor.
Councilman
you gave me the floor.
Jones,
You
Councilman
gave me the floor.
Jones,
Parliamentary
I did,
procedure. You
but
gave me
again,
the floor.
when you come into a meeting,
But I will continue to
no,
speak
you
now.
will not.
I'm not going to
You
allow
will not.
you to
Okay.
disrespect me as,
Mayor's
as
committee
an elected
is
official
called to order.
of
It's concluded. Thank you.
Of Ward 1, and you.